Episode 240 of The Horror Guys.
I'm Kevin.
I'm Brian.
And we're going to talk about some horror movies that we saw.
Amazing horror movies.
No.
A
Not
wild
all
mix
amazing.
of horror movies.
A mix of good and bad. Yeah, but we're going to warn you which is which, so just save you time.
I don't know. I didn't hate any of them.
Or you can go out and watch the ones we didn't care for to see, if we're wrong.
Kevin is having a very judgmental week.
I'm having a judgmental.
I'm the nice guy this time.
I'm having a judgmental week. Yeah. One of these in particular.
Well, we will start with a ridiculous Troma film from 1986 called Blood Hook. You may get hooked on this movie. We'll then watch a film made right here in the town where we live called Half Dead Fred, which just released a few months ago. I've been hearing about this movie for years because it's filmed here, I guess. It just came out, just very recently.
And we missed the world debut. They showed it at the theater, and we missed that.
Well, they don't like it when you bring your laptops into the theater and type synopses along with the story.
Probably not. Yeah.
Well, after that terrifying experience, we'll take a trip to the hospital and end up with The Void from 2016. And to relax after that, we'll stop in and have a little light fun at Willy's Wonderland from 2021.
Where everybody has a good time every day.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And those are the ones we're going to talk about here. If you want to stop over to our newsletter at horrorbulletin.com, you can read up on The Night of the Comet, which might be the ultimate 1980s film.
Oh, it's a snapshot of the 80s for sure.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
But it's good.
Yeah,
I liked it.
Still held up, I thought.
And also the documentary film On the Trail of Bigfoot, Land of the Missing, which is I think this one's coming out sometime later this month. So we got a little bit of a preview on that one.
They focus on Bigfoot in Alaska, whether he's there or not.
Yeah, we've done a couple of these On the Trail of Bigfoot and other cryptid type movies. So this one kind of got relegated to the bonus one this time around.
And the trouble with Alaska is it's big and empty, and it's dangerous. There's a lot of hazards, and a lot of adventurers go up there thinking they can live alone and have adventures alone, and they disappear sometimes. And then they speculate, well...
No, it must be Bigfoot.
Did Bigfoot get some of them? Well, it could. But anyway, it's a well-done documentary.
Not to mention wolves, bears, ice flows, and,
all kinds
fall
of
through the ice.
All kinds of hazards that we know are real.
Yeah.
So anyway, but it's a decent documentary.
Okay. Speaking of a decent documentary, we're going to start out with 1986's Blood Hook.
This wasn't a documentary.
You sure?
I'm pretty sure.
It could be real.
Okay.
It seemed real to me.
Okay. Inspired by true events.
Directed by Jim Mallon. Written by Larry Edgerton, John Galligan, and David Herbert. Stars Mark Jacobs, Lisa Jane Todd, Patrick Dans, and Sarah Hauser. Hour and 50 minutes. Now, I will tell you, we watched this, I want to say Tubi, but I'm not absolutely sure.
I think it was, yeah.
And it's called the Uncensored, Unrated, Rare version.
Okay.
No, actually, now I'm thinking it may have been Amazon Prime. I don't know. Look for it.
I was thinking Tubi,
but the hour and 50 minutes one has an extra 17 minutes of stuff in it. Mm-hmm. And we didn't know that when we went into it, and it seemed fine. It didn't seem like anything was particularly stretched out or overfluffed. Did you think?
Kinda.
You did. Okay.
Yeah, I kind of thought it was a little over. Yeah.
We are a bit mixed on this one.
Yeah. There's a trailer on YouTube, too.
Yeah, you should totally watch the trailer.
Yeah.
So, spoiler-free, what happens?
This wasn't as wild and crazy as some Troma productions are.
It's not as quite as just over-the-top silly as something like Toxic Avenger, no.
Right. It's a serious film.
No, I wouldn't go that far.
There's a mysterious killer that we don't see picking off people at a lake. And we wonder, along with the shrinking number of survivors, who the killer is. And like we mentioned, Brian is more forgiving of this than I am. I kind of thought it was just a mediocre attempt at mimicry.
Well, it was.
Or satire or something. I mean,
it was. It was Friday the 13th, basically.
Yeah, the Friday the 13th original, the sleepaway camp, where people are getting picked off and you don't see the killer. You only see the killer's hand or the weapon or whatever. But it was like that, only mediocre.
They were doing a comedic version of it.
But it wasn't that comedic. I didn't think it was very funny either. It was
satire.
It was just bad. Yeah, it was kind of satirical. but I just thought it fell flat most of the time.
Anytime you're watching something that's supposed to be funny and isn't, you use the word satire. It makes you sound intelligent.
Oh, right. So this was satire. Okay. Anyway, I didn't enjoy it. I just thought it was kind of bad on purpose. You know, like they did this on.
And I think that's exactly it. It was bad on purpose.
They made it that way on purpose, but it was just bad that way. I mean, you know, with the original, you know, like Friday the 13th, they were trying to make a serious movie. But,
well, this is from the 80s, too, when those movies were kind of serious.
Yeah, and yet this one isn't.
This would be like watching, you know, Scary Movie, which is a parody of all the other
Except
things.
Scary Movie's pretty funny. It has some funny stuff, and they really do genuinely satirize things. And here they were just kind of copying these things, not as well, and not very funny. And, yeah, it just didn't grab me at all.
Okay.
I give this a very low rating.
You should watch Blood Hook on some streaming service and let us know what you think.
And decide for yourself, yeah.
All right, well, here's what happens. We open on a man fishing and waving to his little grandson, Peter. The old man is listening to an old-style reel-to-reel tape recorder, and he makes it play really high-pitched, something responds with a hook. The man grabs his face and falls into the water, never to be seen again. And that's like a pre-credit thing.
Mm-hmm. The hook killer has got him.
17 years later. Well, we don't see a hook, actually.
Oh, didn't we?
No, there was. No, he just grabbed his face and fell in the water.
And whoop.
Yeah, that's kind of a typo there. There was no hook.
Oh, okay. I was thinking there was. All right.
I mean, in retrospect, we know what it was. But
yeah.
We don't at this point.
Okay.
17 years later, a bunch of annoying teenagers drive through the woods. They're heading to a place Peter inherited. His family has avoided it since his grandfather's mysterious death many years ago. A Winnebago stops at a bait shop, and the driver complains about the lack of signage pointing to the campground. The bait man gives the boy a magnetic stud finder and some minnows. He warns them about treating the lake with respect. And Kevin's like, Harbinger. Yeah, he's more than that, though.
Yeah, he is.
It's musky madness at the fairgrounds, and it's quite a show. And we looked this up. It's a real thing.
The muskie statue is really cool. It's a gigantic fish that you can go up inside, and there's a viewing platform out its mouth. And this is a real tourist attraction. Yeah.
Well, we see casting contests and other fishing ridiculousness. Bev says she likes Finner's pole. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. They even go inside a huge muskie and take a look while standing in its mouth, which is real.
And they have other giant fish statues there at the grounds, too, and tourist attractions. And, yeah.
We must see the giant muskie someday.
We must go there someday.
Well, they arrive at the cabin and eat Evelyn Durst, the military-minded caretaker's son.
They meet her, don't eat her. I think you said eat her. Whatever.
What?
I thought you said eat.
They meet Evelyn Durst.
Yes.
Evelyn's father is Wayne, and he's a grouchy old fart. Anne goes inside and finds a bunch of old records. She plays one about fishing. Peter then has a flashback about his grandfather, and he's all weirded out over that. Then they all go out to dinner at the local restaurant, and we see the weird family from the bait shop earlier. They are the Swains. Sheila Swain is into doing loon calls. So she goes out to the dock to try some. Suddenly, we see some rod and reel action, and Sheila is pulled off the dock into the water. Peter sees the whole thing from inside the restaurant. Or did he?
Or is he just flashing back?
Elsewhere, Denny talks to his home-raised muskie fish that he intends to use to cheat in the big contest tomorrow. It's like 50 pounds. It's huge. Wayne Durst sneaks in and releases Denny's fish. Back at the cabin, Anne nags at Peter for being unwilling to talk about what bothers him. Kirsten, on the other hand, wants to make music with Peter.
Wink, wink.
Horny teenagers in an 80s slasher film.
Played by people in their 20s.
Well, the next morning, Rodney and Finner go fishing. Finner catches a really big one, but then Bev jogs up and invites them to breakfast. It's all fun and games until she mentions her husband.
Oops.
Rodney brags about Finner's huge muskie to Wayne Durst. Man, he's got a huge muskie.
Okay.
Is that a thing? It's D-U-E-R-S-T, by the way.
Oh, it is D-U-E-R.
Yeah.
Oh.
Rodney's getting into this whole silly fishing thing, so he goes to see Leroy Ludke, the bait man from earlier. They all have funny spellings in their name because this is supposed to be Wisconsin or somewhere.
And that makes it funnier.
Liudke.
Yeah.
Leroy tells stories about the violence that often occurred during the Muskie Madness contests of the past. People take it very seriously. They cheat. There have been murders. Who knows? It's crazy stuff.
Well, I don't know about murders, but they do take these fishing contests seriously, and there is cheating. There's been guys caught where they stuff them with weights. At one point, there's
That
somebody
happens
caught
here.
in this contest. Yeah, people have done that for real and got disqualified. And, yeah.
Well, Leroy gives them some hints about where to get the big fish. Rodney goes out on his boat, and we see a gigantic fish hook come out of nowhere and hook him in the... Oh,
Owie.
Ow, right there, huh? Pulls him right overboard. Well, the sheriff finds his boat adrift, but there's no body. Peter thinks Evelyn Durst did it, since there are bullets in the boat. Actually, Leroy gave Rodney a bullet to make an earring out of it. Yeah, the bullet's just laying in the bottom of the boat. It's not like it was shot.
Right, yeah.
Evelyn has an M16, but it's only a toy. He's not quite the soldier he pretends to be. Kirsten freaks out at hearing that Rodney may be dead and runs off. She floats out on the lake on an inflatable raft, and we see that someone is trying to hook her as well. Meanwhile, Finner and Bev get close, and later he sees her with Evelyn. Oh, Bev is married to Evelyn, the crazy man.
Oh, yeah.
Wayne tells Peter the story of how he shot Peter's grandfather in the back by accident. The old man then recovered and even gave him a job afterward. Wayne seems like a character out of Twin Peaks.
Yeah, a little bit.
I think this was before Twin Peaks, but he would have fit right in.
Yeah, he would have, yeah.
Anne and Peter profess their love for each other. Mr. Swain, who apparently has not noticed his wife has been missing for 3 or 4 days...
He's busy fishing.
...is out on a boat on a lake, and it won't start. He honks a horn to get attention, but no one responds. And soon he finds himself hooked. Bev has a fight with Evelyn and then goes for a nighttime swim. She gets the hook, too. Back at the contest, Denny gets caught cheating again. Peter and Anne come to the conclusion that Finner is the killer. We then see what's really going on. Finner plays his music too loud, which drives Leroy insane. Leroy grabs his big hook and rubs the bullet in his skull.
Well, actually, it's a plate.
Yeah.
He got a war wound, and they put a plate in his skull.
Which you can see when he takes his hat off.
Yeah.
The little kid with the stud finder keeps putting it to his head.
It works.
Finner loses an ear before Leroy whacks him with his hook. Leroy then runs a rope through Finner's jaw, just like putting a fish on a catch line. He drags the body inside and saws it apart before running it through a meat grinder.
Ew.
We then see that he's got a whole string of corpses stashed under his dock. Yeah, when you put the line through the fish like that, you don't leave the dead fish in the lake to rot.
No, it's just a holding thing.
Not very good at this.
No, but he's kind of crazy, so.
All right, maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
Kirsten returns to Peter. She actually swam away from the killer and escaped. Peter finds Finner's ear on the boat and remembers the incident with his grandfather and remembers the cicadas that year. They were big then, too. He's kind of a musical expert and decides that the audio resonance of the cicadas might set off the killer.
Science.
Evelyn calls it the Devil's Trilogy.
Okay.
Well, little Irving Swain says he used the stud finder on Leroy, so it's probably the metal plate in his head causing all the trouble. Cicadas only appear every 17 years, so maybe he did kill Peter's grandfather. Peter and Evelyn decide to go after Leroy. Anne goes outside to meditate on the dock with her boombox. Who meditates with loud music?
It drowns everything else out.
Well, we see Leroy rowing up to her, and she gets hooked in the hand, but she pulls it off and ties it to the dock. She can't get away because the elevator up the hill is really slow, so he gets her anyway. Peter soon finds out that Anne is missing. Peter and Evelyn tell Wayne everything. Old man Wayne doesn't really believe the story, but he does have a gun. When Evelyn shows him Bev's wedding ring, he's convinced. They make a plan. Well, Peter goes out into a boat with Anne's boombox as bait. Inside Leroy's cabin, Anne bargains for her life. Leroy ignores Peter completely. Wayne confronts Leroy right in the middle of the prize award for the Muskie Madness contest, but the sheriff drags Wayne off, thinking he's overreacting. He returns to Peter, who now wants to kill Leroy with his own methods, by hooking him. The sheriff here apparently watched Jaws too many times.
Yes, he did.
We can't do that. It's tourist season.
That's right. Don't want to scare him off.
Peter returns to Leroy's shack that same night and plays annoying music. It has the intended effect. He hooks Peter, but Peter hooks him right back. Leroy pulls his hook out and captures Peter. Peter wakes up inside the shack next to his boombox, which he switches on. He then finds Anne inside as well, but then the sheriff finally arrives and Leroy runs away. The next day, Peter, Anne, and Kirsten leave town. Wayne agrees to help the sheriff look for Leroy, who can't last long hiding in the woods bleeding as much as he is. And we can then cut to Leroy, screaming at the cicadas in the woods.
And then they are hoping that there could be 18 sequels, I think.
Blood Hook 2.
Oh, thank goodness that never happened.
What's with all the rude teenagers playing loud music outside? That alone makes them deserve to die, painfully. Even without the magical resonance thing, it's enough to set me off. People do not play your music outside in public.
It's rude.
Yes. Nobody wants to hear your music. That's what AirPods are made for.
Yes, they are.
We watched the extended cut, which had 17 extra minutes of stuff. It was all fine. I didn't think that anything felt like filler. Still, the ending was very abrupt and didn't feel quite finished. Yeah, the police finally decide to get involved and boom, the killer's gone.
Yep. Oh.
Well, it's well made and the sets look good. I mean, it's a nice looking movie. The acting is, it's typical Troma. It never got boring, I didn't think. If you're into fishing, it's a must-see, very funny movie. Otherwise, stay on the hook.
It's not a very funny movie.
Wow.
And that extra 17 minutes, I don't know. It just, yeah. This one didn't do it for me.
Okay.
Yeah, very low rating.
Well, what's next?
Next is something I liked considerably better. Half Dead Fred, 2023. This was a local-ish film, Flint, Michigan. Directed and written by Bron Theron. Stars Jason London, kind of a big name from television and movies.
Kind of a small part in this movie.
Corin Niemek, another name that we know. Tiffany Sheffis, Jordan Christopher Michael. Runtime's an hour and 38 minutes, and there's a trailer on YouTube.
Yeah, Corin Nemec is the main guy in this. He's Fred.
But both names were, people that they both done considerable things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Recognizable faces and names.
And we were like through this and still calling it Drop Dead Fred. That's a whole different movie.
No,
it's not the
that.
same thing.
Half Dead Fred.
Half dead because he's half dead, sorta.
Sorta.
Well, spoiler free. It has an indie vibe. It's kind of low budgety. I'm not going to say it's filmed on an iPhone, but it's got that indie look to it. Mm-hmm. But it was very well done. It's pretty fun and entertaining overall. The script could have been tightened up a little here and there with a few points that dragged a little bit, but it's a good paranormal mystery. The cast all did a decent job, the makeup was good, and we might liked it more than we disliked it.
Yeah, I did anyway.
Being from local helped a lot in my opinion.
Yeah, somewhat, yeah.
It had some weirdnesses that didn't make any sense. The characters were very strange and quirky and weird, and then they explained it in one shot at the end.
Somewhat, yeah.
Which I thought there should have been a little more, foreshadowing or it needed something a little more than the surprise ending.
I kind of liked that at the end.
Okay.
I was delightfully surprised.
All right.
Yeah.
It kind of screams for a second viewing, something we never have time for. Here's the thing with us. Some of these movies from the 80s and 90s we've seen before, obviously, when they came out.
Yeah.
But these other newer movies that we review, we generally watch them once and talk about them afterwards. Mm-hmm. So some of them, like the new Hellraiser movie, neither of us really liked it that much. But from what I hear, it's much better on the second viewing.
But who has time for that when there's all these new movies that we haven't seen yet?
We did manage to watch Midsummer twice, and I think we both admit it got better on the second viewing when we knew what to expect.
I liked it the first time. I liked it even better the second.
But we don't do reviews like that. We watch a movie and tell you what the viewing left us with our impressions. Mm-hmm. So some of these movies like this one that are going to definitely be different on the second viewing.
Yeah.
You need to work on yourself. You
Well,
decide.
and didn't we do that with Hereditary too?
Yeah.
And you were kind of angry about it too, because you liked it. We both liked it better on the second viewing, and but and I kind of agree with that. You shouldn't have to watch it twice to like it. Neither of us cared for Hereditary that much on the first viewing. And we both liked it a lot better the second viewing. But, like you said, and I think you were angrier about it than I was, but you shouldn't have to watch a movie twice to like it.
Sometimes
and
understand
it.
Yeah. Sometimes when there's a gimmick, the Sixth Sense, for example, it's worth going back and watching it again.
Sometimes, yeah.
The 12 Monkeys, I liked it better the second time, I think.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah.
This one, I'm sure, would be better on the second viewing as well, because there's going to be things to see.
Yeah, probably.
All right, well, what happens? Spoil it for us. Maybe don't spoil it all the way.
Well, no,
it's a new movie.
Because it's so new, yeah.
Yeah.
A family sits around a TV and watches a horror movie. They've just moved into a new house. None of them are comfortable there yet. Well, the kids go to bed. The mother hears strange noises upstairs that night, but nothing's there. And then she sees something outside the window and screams and faints. And credits roll. Well, Freddie Nash gets a phone call and wakes up. He's a private detective, and his assistant is J.Y. Nash has a power that lets him see the dead. He goes to see the family from earlier. He gets called on the case. He hears the mother mention that she had a drink before she saw the thing last night. And he gets, he's skeptical to begin with. That makes him more skeptical. He's kind of got a voiceover of these things that this checklist of things that and that's one of them. People drinking or doing drugs. That's a red flag. Well, she mentions that there had been a murder in the house, and that's why she bought the place so cheaply. Well, he picks up the scent of Xanax on her used glass and suggests that her children drugged her and snuck out last night.
I'm not an expert, but I suspect Xanax doesn't leave a smell in your glass.
Oh, he's got a very sensitive sense of smell.
Okay.
That actually comes up other points, too. That's one of his sleuthing things.
All right.
Yeah. Well, he also finds a mask, and the kids admits they were trying to scare their mother.
They wanted to move back home
out
of this haunted house. So, okay, that whole thing was fake.
Yeah. So, Freddie and JY drive to Freddie's old house. And we get a flashback to Freddie and his son going for ice cream. A car accident derails their plans, and his son is killed. And Freddie is seriously injured. And since then, he can see ghosts. And he's been trying to use his power for good.
Sort of a dead zone kind of power.
Yeah, when he wakes
got
up
in a traffic accident, and now he can see dead people.
Well, we cut to Flint, Michigan, where a woman hears whispering in her house. The electricity blinks. Usual haunting stuff goes on, but something kills her.
Oops.
Ghosts don't usually do that. Well, the next morning, Nash gets another call and heads to Flint to investigate on another case. Nash talks about Flint and how he likes to visit there. He meets up with Roberta. She's the one who called him when her maid was murdered. That's who we were seeing. She explains the police have no leads, the dead woman had no enemies, there's no evidence, they're stumped. Well, Roberta shows Nash a video from her dead father. It's a video will, which he says he's hidden a treasure. And there are some cryptic clues, like X always marks the spot, and some vagueness. But she says probably the whole town knows about the treasure hunt by now, but she doesn't know where in the house it could be. She's looked everywhere. And everyone knows the house is haunted. Their neighbor even wrote a book on the subject. Well, Nash goes up to the old man's room and feels something. Ghostly things start happening in the room almost immediately. So he's not doubtful that this one is real. The neighbor James comes over and talks about the people who died in the house and other houses and things.
Okay,
and he is a real guy from Flint who wrote Haunted Flint. So it's kind of a...
He's a very weird character in the movie. I don't know what he's like in real life, but very strange guy. That's probably a good place to stop without spoiling too much.
It is, yeah. So he investigates the haunting, and it's a mystery of what's going on, and there's other family members involved and other locations in Flint.
It's a detective story. He questions people and so forth.
And he can kind of see ghosts. Dead people. I see dead people.
Yeah, and they see him.
Yeah.
Okay, so paranormal detectives are kind of common in books, like Odd Thomas and things like that. but not so much with films, so this is kind of a nice change. This was filmed in Flint, and they mention that several times during the movie. There are digs at the real estate market, the local police response times, and a few other things. Some guy gets shot in a bar, and he says, well, the police will be here in a couple hours. Yep. Well, we recognize several of the settings since we live in Flint. They look in the trunk of the car, and there's the IHOP that we usually go to in the background. Well, the character James, who talks about writing a book on the topic, is played by Joe Schapani, who actually did write the book on the topic. Yeah, I bought the book during the movie, and I haven't read it yet.
Haunted Flint.
Haunted Flint. Nash tracks down a lot of leads, which is fine in a detective novel, but it was a little less interesting here. He talks to the daughter Debbie and Jake, and they're both kind of boring in these interviews.
It's a little draggy.
Yeah. They just sit there and they talk and they talk and they talk.
And in addition to the, his talking out loud, there's voiceover narration throughout too, which is kind of interesting.
That was fine.
I thought that added to it. I think it would have been worse and slower without that. I think that really made it more interesting.
It helped. Yeah. So the pacing is a little draggy in a few other places as well.
Don't read this next part.
There is a twist. Like we already said, that there was a little bit of a twist at the very end, and it makes sense at the end. But it was so out of the blue that it didn't faze me as much. Kevin thought it was a cool little thing and was impressed with it.
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah.
And as I watched, I thought the character was needlessly quirky, but it did all make sense in the end.
I like being completely surprised, and I was.
Okay.
That doesn't happen enough as experienced and jaded as I am with horror movies.
Okay, well, there is a lot of humor and offbeat characters here. My only real complaint is it could have been maybe 15 minutes shorter by compressing a few of the overly talky scenes.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, but overall, we definitely liked it.
Oh, yeah, it's worth checking out.
It was a lot of fun because it was local, too.
Yes.
Okay, what's up next? It was a short film called The Culling, 2023. Directed by Matty Crawford. Written by Matty Crawford and Paul Carey. Stars Jack Hartley, Logan Spooner, Jack Hayes, and Nick Cornwall. 13 minutes plus. You can watch the whole thing on YouTube. There's a link in the show notes.
And this was one of my favorites that we've seen recently. And it might be the one that has the most unexplained. The most, what's going on in this world.
It's very weird and confusing, but it looks so good.
It does, yeah, and they're so good in it.
Okay, what happened? What's it about?
Well, a boy sits in a chair as someone puts a blindfold over his eyes. He's then driven somewhere in the back of a truck and left there with a box of things. He's been abandoned. Well, the boy walks through a windy field, and he leaves the blindfold on, till another boy finds him and starts leading him home with a leash. Elsewhere, a man chops logs and talks to a cow until the cow starts to glow and talk to him. The man's father comes into the kitchen later and insists that the cow belongs outside because he brought it inside. Well, meanwhile, the weather outside is getting more and more severe. So sometimes a cow is not a cow.
Sometimes the cow is a cow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was really intense.
It was, yeah.
The big mystery here is what's really going on and why they don't take the blindfold off. The black and white visuals are sharp, but very odd. Nothing here feels quite normal, and it all looks really good. The talking cow immediately brings to mind the goat from The Witch. Wouldst thou like the taste of butter?
Yeah.
Well, the visuals are very reminiscent of The Lighthouse. Black and white, very sharp, two guys in a room arguing. And both of those movies are by Robert Eggers, so I think he probably had a lot of influence here. Yeah, we didn't spoil the thing because we're really not quite sure what happened.
Well, you can see what happened, but why and what's going on.
You get hints of what's going on, but it's not super clear.
But this is one we'd highly recommend checking out.
Yeah, it's maybe one of the better ones this year.
Yeah, I thought so.
All right, well, what's next?
What is next? The Void from 2016.
Not one of the best ones of the year.
Well, this was one that I liked better on the second viewing too, though.
Well, I liked it better on the second viewing too, but it's still not great.
No. Saw this. Did we see it when it came out?
No, it was like probably a few months before we started the show. That's why we haven't covered it before.
And this time we did it for real.
Yeah.
Well, it was directed by and written by Jeremy Gillespie and Stephen Kostansky. Stars Aaron Poole, Kenneth Walsh, Ellen Wong, and Kathleen Monroe. Run is an hour and a half. There's a trailer trailer on YouTube. And spoiler free?
Well, there's lots of action that really never lets up. Things just get weirder and worse as the movie goes along. The acting is fine, the script is interesting, and the practical effects were excellent. We both liked it even more seeing for it the second time this round. Like I said, we don't watch movies twice on purpose. This is one we saw because it came out just before we started the Horror Guys, and we didn't review it, so we had to watch it this time. And it was better the second time.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. Can you spoil it for us?
Well, there are gunshots in a house, and two men drag a person outside and set them on fire.
What? That escalated quickly.
Yeah, it did. Another person runs off into the fields. They won't get far, says one of the men. We cut to someone in a white robe with a black triangle where the face ought to be, and credits roll. Sheriff Danny is napping in his car in the woods, and he gets a call on the radio that something is happening. He turns on the light and sees someone crawling alongside the road. The man is clearly injured, so the sheriff takes him to the nearest hospital. The old hospital is in the process of shutting down. There was a fire in the basement, and it's almost unusable at this point.
Yeah, they're in the process of closing it off, but it's still operational, barely.
Yeah, he calls ahead, and they can still take the guy. They're short-staffed, but they're all right. So there are still patients and people in the hospital, including pregnant Maggie and her father. Dr. Powell says the baby may be on the way tonight, so he stayed late to help. The stranger's name is James, and a doctor says he's probably just on drugs. Nursing assistant Kim doesn't want to be there, so she's busy just putting files in boxes getting ready for the move. Allison is Danny's ex, and she's still coming to terms with losing their child. Danny checks in on Nurse Beverly, who is in the process of cutting off her own face after stabbing a patient in the eye.
Yeah, things move briskly in this.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
She comes at him with a knife, so he shoots her. Danny gets upset at this and faints, but then he has a weird vision of a weird pyramid. When he wakes up, State Police Officer Mitchell is there, and he's come for James, who killed a bunch of people up north. He's kind of a jerk, and he takes away Danny's gun. I'm in charge here now, you local cop. Give me your gun.
Uh-huh.
Well, Danny tries to call in the shooting on the radio, but the phones are all out. He goes outside to try the radio in the car, but it doesn't work either. Then he sees that the white-hooded cultist out there who jumps on him with a dagger. There are a bunch of these cultists, and Danny runs back inside the hospital.
He gets a pretty good stabbing in the process.
The doctor and the nurses immediately get to work on his stab wound, and he has another dream about the weird place in the pyramid. Mitchell reports that cultists have the hospital surrounded. The patient James starts screaming, and the two cops see a monster in the room with him. It's like right out of The Thing. The two men from the burning we saw earlier come in and hold everyone at gunpoint. James stabs the doctor in the neck, and he dies very quickly. In the confusion, the monster grabs Mitchell and drags him away. The monster then morphs and mutates right in front of them as the men shoot it and hack it with axes. They finally appear to kill the thing.
But it dies hard. Yeah,
It
that
does.
was a gruesome scene.
The two armed men, the father and the son, still want James. They don't know who the cultists are, and they aren't willing to explain much. Maggie goes into labor, so the medical people are all distracted.
And there's a point, too, and I think you mentioned it maybe
Yeah.
in the wrap-up, too. A little more explanation along here would have been, things are rushed and hurried and everything, and, there's no time to explain kind of situation. But, no, there would be time to explain.
There would be time to explain some
You
of this.
could throw out a few sentences here of what's going on to help these people out understanding what's going on a bit more. The father and the son knew somewhat.
They know
what was
everything,
happening.
I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at least somewhat. Yeah, I don't think they had all the answers, but they knew more than these people in the hospital.
They would have been killing the cultists and setting them on fire up north if they didn't know something.
Right. Yeah, they had some reason for that. Yeah, and why they're after James.
Well, then they notice the dead doctor's body is gone.
Whoops.
Danny soon gets a phone call from the dead doctor, who may not have been as innocent as he let on. He has photos of the cultists on his desk. They interrogate James with a hammer, and he says he killed the doctor as a favor to them, but he doesn't know why the doctor got up again. He talks about what the cult make him do and watch. They made people change. Well, the men go down into the basement where the fire happened, and this is why the hospital is being demolished after all. But then they find a basement beneath the basement, but it's not supposed to be there.
A basement beneath the basement. That'd be kind of cool, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Allison wakes up on an operating table, and she talks to Dr. Powell, who is cutting himself apart. He lost his daughter years ago, and this is all his solution to that problem. He says that some of his early experiments are still down here wandering around. They're the ones that caused the fire. He pulls away the blanket, and Allison sees that something inside her is pulsating.
Yeah, and at this point, he's dead, but not dead somehow, and yeah, he's cutting his skin off.
Yeah. Well, that's what you do when you're dead. You cut your skin off, because why not?
Yeah.
Danny's group finds a triangular symbol on the floor, and both James and the father recognize it from the cultist's house. Upstairs, Kim works on pregnant Maggie while her grandfather assists, but neither of them knows what they're doing. Maggie finally gets tired of them whining and takes care of things herself. She then goes off with the cultists. Downstairs, Danny's group runs into all kinds of mutant monstrosities, and before long, Danny's the only one left. He eventually finds Allison, who is suddenly very pregnant, with a monster. He hacks her apart with his axe. Well, a triangle lights up behind Danny, and Dr. Powell talks to him. Maggie and the cultists come in and stab Danny in the back. Maggie approaches the triangle and Powell, and the triangle becomes a doorway, and we see the big pyramid on the other side. The baby then rips herself out of Maggie, and it's quite something.
And it was kind of reminiscent of Hellraiser at multiple points.
Oh, yeah.
And that's, the portal, reminded me the portals to hell in Hellraiser.
Mm-hmm. Out of nowhere, the father and the son come in, shotguns blazing, and start shooting the new monster. The father douses himself with gasoline, and the son sets him on fire to burn the creature as well. The son then climbs out through the air vents. Danny stands up enough to hack Powell with his axe, but that doesn't stop him. Danny then grabs Powell, and they both go through the portal. The son runs through the basement, pursued by the one remaining monster, as the walls squeeze shut. He gets out, back into the hospital, and runs into Kim, who's been hiding safely in a closet all this time. Danny and Allison look up at the alien sky. The giant floating pyramid is there. They're on the other side. Now what?
Yeah, now what?
Void 2.
Could be.
Well, this is mostly done with practical effects, and you can definitely tell. The creatures look really good, and as I said, this is the second viewing of this, and we liked it a lot more this time around. The monsters and the cultists both remind the viewer of two old John Carpenter films, The Thing and Prince of Darkness. Where the cultists surround the building and don't let them out.
Mm-hmm.
There are many other similarities as well. There's a lot of Lovecraftian imagery and themes involved behind the cultists, although we never really get much of an explanation about them. The cultists never really do anything.
No, they just kind of hang around outside.
The sets are really good and the acting is fine. I'd have liked a bit more explanation from the characters that did know what was happening. As it was, there were too many secrets to be realistic. There's no time to tell you. There's no time to explain.
Well, there would have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone needed to pause for just one frickin' minute and talk this out. But it is all very atmospheric and weird. We both liked it.
Yeah, we did. I think the cultists were probably just there waiting for the portal to open. I mean, Powell was, opening the portal to hell, basically.
Well, that's fine, but it's kind of purposeless for the movie.
Yeah, but it ended up getting shut prematurely. Danny foiled his plans somewhat.
So they all went back home to work at 7-Eleven the next morning.
Yeah, just went back to their jobs the next morning. Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, they were there awaiting the end, and it didn't quite come. So, okay.
I'm tired. Let's have a vacation.
Yeah.
Where can we go?
Let's go have ice cream now. Oh, Willy's Wonderland.
Yeah.
Where the fun never stops.
It's like Chuck E. Cheese.
It is kind of. It's that same kind of idea.
Directed by Kevin Lewis, written by Geo Parsons, stars Nicolas Cage, Emily Tosta, Beth Grant, and Rick Wrights. Hour and 28 minutes. Trailer in the show notes. Willy's Wonderland from 2021. Have you heard of this movie that's coming up called Five Nights at Freddy's?
Five Nights at Freddy's? Yeah, I have.
Well, this movie came out 3 years before that, and it's the same basic idea.
It is, yeah. From what I hear.
I don't know what the
Yeah.
story with the Five Nights at Freddy's, why it has taken so many years and has gotten so much talking and has taken so long to make.
But in the meantime, they went ahead and made this movie.
Not to be confused with Five Fingered Freddy's, which is, or Freddy Got Fingered,
Or Half Dead Fred.
or Half Dead Fred. Oh my goodness. Willy's Wonderland.
Willy's Wonderland. This was entertaining. I was just going to spoil it for you.
It was, yeah, it's entertaining and strange. With Nick Cage playing a strong, very silent type. He doesn't say a word through the entire movie. The practical effects are great with lots of gore. The story is decent, and we both liked it. Yeah.
What an acting challenge to go through a whole movie as the lead character without saying a word.
Well, at first I was thinking this might be some kind of contractual thing, like, I'll do your damn movie, but I'm not going to say anything.
No, it was written that way, and it said that he was excited about the challenge of accepting that role. He was really on board with it.
Well, there was one of the old Hammer Christopher Lee movies where he said, I'll do it, but I'm not speaking.
Yeah.
They did the whole movie, and he was
All
silent.
All he did was growl a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, he was actually involved with the executive producer. He wrote some of this. He was heavily involved with Nick Cage, I mean.
Yeah, it was written.
Written like this. It's not a grudge movie.
Fully on board. Yeah. Well, we get old video clips of animatronic creatures as a couple covered in blood runs from something terrifying, and something kills them both with a lot of blood. Credits roll as we watch a car driving too fast and get 4 tires flat all at once from running over a trap in the road. The tow truck driver says it was a kid's prank as they drive into the small town of Hayes. Well, we cut to a girl about to set fire to Willy's Wonderland, which is all closed and boarded up. But just before she lights it, the sheriff shows up. She's Liv, and when she sees the stranger with the flat tire, she likes him. The tow truck guy takes him to the mechanic's shop and looks and says, well, that'll be $1,000 to fix your car.
In cash, because the credit machine is broken.
Yeah, don't have a credit machine. And, the ATM card is down. ATM machine is down too. But he knows a guy who will give you a job, and he pays cash. All you have to do is meet with Tex, who is the owner of the long-closed Willy's Wonderland. He offers to pay for the car to be fixed if the man stays inside and cleans overnight.
Oh, wait a minute. $1,000 to spend a night and clean an old place.
Not at all suspicious.
Where do I sign up for this job?
Yeah, well, it's obviously a sketchy deal, but the new janitor doesn't really have much choice. Tex plays a video demonstrating what Willy's used to be like. Essentially a Chuck E. Cheese kind of place. And the place shut down due to lawsuits from kids crawling on the animatronics and getting hurt. Plus, there was the question of people coming up missing and things like that too. I think I think he briefly touched on that, hinted at it, and the sheriff goes into it more later. But yeah, well, Tex then leaves, padlocking the janitor inside for the night.
And Nick Cage is just the janitor. He never gets named.
That's what we call him because that's. Yeah, he has no name. He doesn't identify himself. Liv's friends come to free her from the sheriff's handcuffs. Yeah, basically the sheriff hauled her back to the trailer and grounded her by handcuffing her to the
sheriff
radiator.
Adopted her, so she's not really under arrest. She just sort of handcuffed at home because that's what parents do.
Naughty kid, yeah. Well, the friends come and free her, and Kathy, one of the friends, picks the lock. And she wants to do what's right and burn Willy's to the ground. But she wonders about that guy that Tex suckered into staying outside. Her gang wants revenge for all the missing people and dead kids. Inside Willy's, the janitor starts cleaning and tidying up the long abandoned mess. And we see some of the animatronic creatures moving a little bit behind him. And the mechanical Ozzy, the ostrich, pops up and says, I'm going to feed on your face, and bites him. So there's a ridiculous battle as the janitor beats it to death and pulls its mechanical spine out. He tries to take it to the trash. That's when he realizes he's locked in. Well, he's got a timer on his watch that goes off every hour, reminding him to drink his Punch Pop energy drink.
And that is just weird.
It does. No matter what he's doing, the timer goes off. He goes to have one. And the janitor gets back to work cleaning the restrooms when all the animatronics activate and start singing, It's Your Birthday. Gus the gorilla attacks, and the janitor kills him with a plunger. He takes a long, hard look at the other characters before stopping for another energy drink and getting back to work cleaning. Well, Liv and her people arrive outside, and they all pour gas around the place. They're thinking about lighting it up, but Liv insists that they got the man inside. They need to get him out. So she crawls in through the air ducts, which are the only clean place.
They're spotless.
Yeah, they're just amazingly clean and big. Yeah. Well, she gets in, and she's pursued by Artie the alligator and Siren Sarah. Liv tells the janitor that he needs to leave, but he just walks away. The roof collapses, and all Liv's friends fall inside too.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Well, Liv explains to the janitor that he's there to be a human sacrifice. And the trick with the tires that's a regular thing that they do to snag people. The place was built by a serial killer who lured and killed entire families there. And when they were getting about to be caught and hauled in, the owner and his serial killer friends did a satanic ritual and transferred their souls into the animatronic animals.
You know, when you're a Chucky doll, you can get away with hiding in a lot of places. When you're a 7-foot-tall animated giraffe, not so much.
Yeah. Well, Willy the Weasel sings a song as Nighty Night stabs Aaron. The janitor drinks more power punch and plays pinball as things get dangerous with the others. Kathy and Bob separate from the others and start having sex. Chris calls the sheriff and tells her what's going on. She hangs up on him. People made their beds, they got a lie in them. Well, she finally relents, takes Deputy Evan to Willy's. She realizes that her
She knows exactly what's going on.
Yeah, she knows exactly what's going on, and her adopted daughter is in there. Well, the janitor stopped playing pinball long enough to wreck Nighty Night, and in the next room, Artie the alligator kills Bob and Kathy, while Siren Sarah finishes off Dan. The janitor breaks down the door and tears Artie's face off. Cammy the chameleon talks to Chris, trying to convince him that she's not like the others. Well, she's not different from the others. So the sheriff comes in, tells Evan about Willy, and he thinks she's joking. Oh, this is on the way there. Yeah, that's the deputy. Yeah. She tells him the history of the cursed place. And the machines were getting out killing people, even children, randomly around town. So they cut a deal and started offering them morally questionable people and travelers to eat if they would leave the townfolk alone. And this has been going on a long time, making sacrifices. Liv was one of the few who survived a night in the building as a very small child, and the sheriff took her in. Well, meanwhile, the janitor is about to kill Cammy the chameleon, but he has to stop for another punch pop break. So he just leaves Liv to deal with it. And after the drink, he has a go at pinball, and he comes back to continue the job. He's just weird about this. The sheriff arrives, and she points her gun at the janitor. She orders Evan to handcuff the janitor, and then they, along with Liv, leave him inside. Liv works on talking to Evan in the car about going back. Evan does decide to go back, but he's attacked by Tito the turtle, who is out.
There's a lot of characters
out on
here.
The street. Yeah, there's a lot of the animatronics. Yeah, Liv beats him to death with an unloaded shotgun. Cammy and Sarah walk in. They're ready to finish off the janitor. The handcuffs don't slow him down much. He goes back to work cleaning after disposing of the mechanical and human bodies. And then only Willy himself is left on stage. The sheriff returns and complains about how they had a good thing going. And the sheriff notices that Willy's not on the stage anymore and violently kills the sheriff. Oh, that was a good kill. Just rips her right in half. Well, Willy turns against the janitor and claws him up pretty well before dumping him into the ball pit. But the janitor isn't going to give up that easily. He packs up his remaining power punch cans in a bag as a weapon and goes after the bug weasel.
Big weasel.
Well, he's a bug weasel, too. Willy the Weasel. Okay.
Yes.
The epic music plays as the two do battle. Claws versus a bag of sodas. And the janitor eventually rips Willy's head off. Well, Tex and the tow truck driver bring the janitor's car to the parking lot. we see a heavily damaged Siren Sarah crawling out of the dumpster. Inside, the janitor has the place looking clean and good as new. The janitor takes his keys from Tex, who looks thoroughly astonished. Liv meets the janitor outside the car and gets in with him. They ride off into the sunset. Well, Tex and the truck driver come out of the place glad that their problems are over. It's actually all over. So they get into Tex's car, which Sarah immediately blows up.
Boom.
Yeah. The janitor and Liv drive away. He gives her a can of his drink, and they run down Tito the turtle on the way out of town.
Oops, forgot one.
Yeah, no, cleaned him up on the way out.
Well, Nick Cage doesn't say a word at all throughout the entire film. Gotta wonder what the story behind that was. It was an interesting decision.
Mm-hmm.
His weird behavior and addiction to punch pops is a lot of fun. We'd never really know why. Each time he kills a monster, he puts on a brand new, clean uniform, which is also hilarious. Like, he's not going to get this one dirty. It's supposedly not an adaptation of Five Nights at Freddy's, but it's awfully close to the same idea. It's also strikingly similar to the Banana Splits movie, and also kind of like the Child's Play remake from a year or two ago.
A little bit, yeah.
It's good, it's weird, and it's funny in all the right places. Definitely recommend it.
Yes, I would too.
All right,
That's my favorite of the week.
Okay.
Willy's Wonderland. Yeah.
Now you're going to make me look to see what we just talked about so I can compare.
Yeah, what's your favorite of the week? I liked The Void the second time. You know, Half Dead Fred. Didn't care so much for Bloodhook.
Okay, I'll go with Willy's Wonderland as my favorite, followed by probably Bloodhook.
Yeah, that's the bottom of my list.
Actually, I like Night of the Comet best of the bunch. We didn't really talk about that one. That's for the...
that would be my second choice.
That's for the newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
Night of the Comet was from 1984.
Thoroughly 80s movie, an apocalyptic movie where a comet comes.
Yeah.
And it's surprisingly funny for such a massive body count. There's a lot of humor in it. They handle it really well. It's
Stars Catherine Mary Stewart, Robert Beltran, and Kelly Maroney. So Robert Beltran before Voyager.
So I thought that one held up, and yeah, it's still entertaining.
It's basically a zombie movie, but not exactly.
Not quite.
And then we also talk about On the Trail of Bigfoot, Land of the Missing, written and directed by Seth Breedlove with many interviewees.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically, why did all those people in Alaska go missing? Did Bigfoot get them?
Could Bigfoot be roaming Alaska?
He could be.
Could be.
He could be.
He could be. Well, that's what they speculate. They can't rule it out, but there's no evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's our show for this week. We had some good movies. We had some bad movies. You know what?
You should watch
I
them
am
all.
really tired of quality. Next week, let's watch some of the worst movies of all time.
Okay.
Or at least the ones that are claimed to be the worst movies of all time.
Historically bad.
Yeah.
And we'll see. We'll see what we think of them.
We want to spoil something?
Nah. Let people be surprised.
They're bad. They're so bad they're fun.
Uh-huh.
All right, well, I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
We'll see you next week.
See ya.